You know when like a band releases their debut album, it sometimes feels like a lot of their songs are a collection of songs they've had with them right from the very start, maybe from their sort of teenagers. Is that a similar case to you with this sort of first film? Is this an idea that you've had with you and a film you've wanted to make for quite some time?
It's a film I've been working on for a long time. That question terrifies me because it implies that I'll have absolutely no idea what to do next, which may also be true. But I think it is accumulation of memories and anecdotes and details from a fairly specific point in time. So it's not so much that I think I've been carrying this around in quite that way as I have been working on this consistently for a long period of time.
I mean, it's one of the most kind of assured debuts I've seen. I feel like every frame feels so deliberate, every decision so well thought out. Is the film exactly as you always intended to be, or has it changed shape over the course of the production?
Yeah, I don't think a film ever can be. I think on the page, it's like when you read a book and you form an impression of characters, but if forced to describe them thoroughly, you couldn't. And I think in a lot of ways that is what a film is like on the page. You have a sense of what it is, but when you are at the point of creating that, it is somehow different. But I think ultimately the feeling and the impression of the film is what I wanted to capture, and the ways in which it's different I like, you know, and it's impossible to execute a film perfectly, I think, but it is an imperfect process. It's a highly collaborative process, and ultimately I'm very proud of the final film.
There's a moment when Never Ever is playing and Frankie orders a Fanta Lemon.
Yes.
And that little moment took me back to my holiday so much. And it got me thinking, because I think that I got the nostalgia hit from this film, and I could remember, because I think I'm 34, so roughly a similar age to sort of the character Sophie is.
Yeah.
And it reminded me of my own holidays. And then now, so I kind of can relate to it on that perspective. And now I'm sort of relating to the character of Calum as a kind of as a man in his 30s and more sort of complexities of the adult mind and stuff. Was that a challenge for you to create something where audience members can relate equally to an 11-year-old girl and a 34-year-old father and feel emotionally connected to both?
I think that is somewhat reflective of why I made the film, in that I was flipping through old holiday albums and I came across photographs of my dad on holidays when I was around the age that Sophie is in the film, and was struck by how young he was and the fact that I was approaching that age myself. And so to some degree, I was writing with that in mind, with both perspectives, and it took a lot of balance to find on the page and in the edit to shift back and forward between those two characters and give audiences access to them both, though in quite different ways, because ultimately this is Sophie's story and framed as a remembering of this point in time many years later.
On that subject, I was just bringing up Never Ever, which is the greatest pop song of the 90s, and I'll 100%.
I won't disagree.
But the music choices are wonderful here. Were they chosen in advance when writing, or were you kind of planning sort of specific moments for specific songs, or did they kind of come during the making of it?
Never Ever was one of the few in the script, alongside Tender, Losing My Religion, because that's karaoke, and we had to pre-clear it. But ultimately, Tender, Never Ever were songs that I hoped to include and was very lucky to be able to. And not just to be able to from a legal point of view, but that they fit in the film, because there were many tracks I wanted to include that just never quite sat right in individual scenes. So I think it was a combination of songs I loved, songs I hoped to include that I had on a playlist I'd been building for 7 years or 5 years when setting out to make it. And I worked with an editor who is American and really isn't interested in British pop music from the 90s. And so he would just grab things from that playlist, and they would always serve the scene. They were never about chasing his own feelings about what was great or not about 90s pop and Britpop. He would just always choose in service of the story, which is ultimately the right thing to do. And so it was a nice balance of those two things, I think.
My final question, I wanted to ask about Frankie, just firstly how you sort of discovered her, but secondly how you directed her, because the film, just sort of helping her contextualise the story and kind of understand the overarching, the sort of narrative of the film. Just wondering how you kind of go about that when directing someone that age.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of that was under the guidance of Lucy Party, our casting director, who has an amazing knack for discovering young talent, and it was in collaboration with her that we found Frankie and identified Frankie's talent. And then in terms of being on set, it was just about creating space for her to be the amazing performer that she is. She never had a full version of the script. We read it together with Paul, the three of us, twice in the 2 weeks leading up to shooting. And it was a redacted version of the script. So she had no sense of what was happening to Calum or his own struggles with mental health beyond her eye. And I think that fed into Paul's performance. But it also allowed her to stay very present in her scenes with the context that the character had. And so it was just about setting up an environment that was fun and playful and ultimately supportive of her being a first-time performer. And I think Paul was a great partner in that too.
Yeah, they're both wonderful in this
Yeah.
film. Thank you so much for the time today, Charlotte.
Yeah,
Appreciate
thanks
it.
so
Cheers.
much.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Hey You Guys!
Hey You Guys, huh?
Hey, you guys.
Is that from the Goonies?
It is indeed, yeah.
Nice.
Hey, you guys!